welcome to our Upbeat Conversations. This is Lauren and I'm Pips, and we are really excited to be chatting to you today because we have developed an incredible resource. We've developed a set of developmental milestones, and we want to share with you today about our heart behind why we actually did this project, how developmental milestones are helpful for us as parents and where they are not helpful. And this is a really important thing. Stay tuned. At the end, we're going to let you know how you can access these developmental milestones so that you can engage with them with your little person that you are growing. So Lauren, you are an occupational therapist in private practice. Tell us a bit about what you do and what kind of kids you see.
So at the moment, private practice, but looking at more your school-based children, so kind of starting from grade R. I have a few of my littlies, so probably around 3 that I'm seeing. I know it's my favorite.
It's so cute.
Don't tell anyone else that. But yeah, so looking a lot at how children can function in their everyday life. So being able to reach their full potential, which is my kind of motto, being able to reach potential. And one of my passions is early intervention. I can see it when a child from grade 2 comes to me, how much they've already kind of slipped into bad habits, and how much you have to really intensively work with them to get them to a point where they do feel confident enough to try new things.
And I mean, I think so much of the focus needs to be on early intervention, and I'm just seeing that more and more, just even with my little boy. And this was one of the reasons why I wanted to develop these milestones. When he was about a year old, I started noticing, wow, hang on, is his speech, actually funny enough, his speech, and I'm a speech therapist, is his speech on par? Is he developing his communication skills okay? And I remember going back and forward, and I went back to all my old textbooks, quickly opened them up and would sit there and go, hang on, is this child developing, is this okay? Is this normal? So the key then was what I did with that information, because I think if you go back to a set of developmental milestones and you purely just look at them from a pass-fail perspective, I think we're going to miss the mark. And so that was where my heart sort of developed, with wanting to put out a resource that other moms could refer to quickly and easily to help guide them. But I think then the key is what to do with it, and we'll chat a bit more about that. But what was your heart behind these milestones? I mean, you've mentioned early intervention. So
kind of going off what you were saying, I think a key factor there is you are a health professional and you were worried. Yeah. So looking at being on the presence of social media nowadays, is I often see parents asking the greater Facebook community or Instagram community, my child's delayed in this, should I, what should I do? And so many parents who don't have the background are answering because every child is unique. So instead of kind of going to the professionals, they are asking people who don't really actually know the ins and outs of development. So for me, that's kind of where it started, where I said, I want to create a resource that is easy to use, that is a compilation of research that is not just kind of taking from one space and saying, this isn't the be all and end all, but this is kind of a guideline as to where your child should be sitting. And if you aren't worried, then to actually go chat to a professional.
And I think that's exactly what I did. So I took off my therapist hat when I wasn't sure, when I had some questions, when I looked at my developmental milestones in all my books and stuff. And then I went to a speech therapist friend of mine and I said, listen, can you just talk to me? Can you give me some perspective? Now, I was really lucky that I had a friend like that I could just bounce stuff off. Yeah. But I decided to take off my mom hat and get a professional to weigh in. And that created such a sense of peace and calm for me, because she was able to talk me through things that I wasn't necessarily able to see from a set of milestones, because it's very black and white on a page. Definitely. And our children are more than that. They're more than a set of a checklist or a rubric to tick off. And so I think that was key. And for me, that's how I feel I want moms to be able to use this resource that we've put together, that where they do have some concerns, that they speak to you, speak to me, find another speech therapist, another OT out there that they feel they can trust, and start a conversation, have an assessment, and start a process. If there is early intervention that's needed, let's get it going.
Exactly. And I think it was also so important that often there's certain milestones that are very much focused on. So like you're walking, you're talking, that all the other little things get left behind. And for me, especially being in the school age, those are the ones that you see are left behind. So when the parents like, oh no, but they're fine, they're functioning in class, and you're like, but they're not, because they lost these little skills along the way that often don't get talked about.
Yeah.
So with our resource, I hope that we can also shed some light on all those other little things.
Yeah. And I think, as professionals, we are trained to have this bird's eye view of the holistic development of a child. And you're talking about these little things that can get lost along the way. And I think we've been trained so in depth for so many years on how to spot those other little things. As parents, we don't know what to look for sometimes. And that's me as a speech therapist talking. So I think also, let's just pause, and just for anybody who's going, yes, this is so good, I need to hear more about this, but what are the areas that an OT works in? Maybe this is an early intervention resource, so let's maybe just unpack a bit about OT and speech, and what we do in those age ranges.
Yeah. So OT, what I love about OT is it's holistic, meaning that we look at the whole child. So taking in the uniqueness, but also looking at sensory motor. So that's like your gross motor skills, being able to regulate yourself in your environment, looking at the fine motor skills, which obviously stems from the gross motor skills, which is often where parents kind of get left behind. They're like, oh, but they're great in their sports, but if there's something that's just missing, the fine motor skills are going to get impacted. We also look at cognitive, and this is where parents get stuck, because they're often like, oh, my child's he's really bright. And often it's the skills that are lacking in the child that they're just not bridging to get to their full potential in class. And we also look at visual perception. So that's the ability, how we perceive information, to be able to do like a motor output, for example. And yeah, I'm just trying to think. We have so many things that
I'm
we
putting you on the spot
here.
here.
No, that we have so many things that we look at that, we also look at the emotional side of the child, the social emotional, so social skills, how they're relating to their peers. So I think because OT is so broad, it is hard to explain it. And often parents are like, get stuck on like, it's for handwriting.
Yes,
but
it is so much more.
No, exactly. And we look at the skills that make handwriting possible.
Yes.
So that's kind of like, we look at the building blocks of what
and this is exactly a bit about our resource. It's looking at the building blocks of all these things, which, I'm not an OT, so sometimes I don't even get those connections, at an early level. What actually is the building block for this skill or that skill at an academic level? I work very much within a pediatric population myself, in terms of speech therapy. And when we talk about speech therapy, we're looking at the way that children understand language, and then the way they use language to express their wants, their needs, their desires, and just communicate and engage with the world. And that is different. That language-based skill is different from speech. The way that I use my oral muscles to form speech sounds, and then we work on a lot of things there. Confusions between words, a t and a d, those sort of common speech errors, the baby kind of speech errors that we hear in little ones, lisps and stutters, and feeding problems in children. That's a big thing that speech therapists work with. Also OTs work within that, and I think there's a big overlap with feeding, and how feeding is also such an important foundational skill for so much in terms of speech and language communication, and also from a sensory perspective, I would be guessing for OT. And I think the feeding area is an area that a lot of parents just don't know about. I remember starting solids at 6 months with my little guy, and you go, what? I've learned all this, but now it's
putting into the practical.
Putting it into practice. I'm sure there are areas that we have probably brushed over because we did this on the spot. And also because speech and OT is actually such a varied, we work from babies who can't suck in the NICU all the way to old age.
Exactly the same as us.
Exactly the same as you, and we've just focused more on the sort of the pediatric early intervention population. So I hope that's helpful for anyone who maybe wasn't sure of our roles and how we can step in. But for you, Lauren, how should these guidelines that we've developed not be used? Because we had a lot of back and forth going, well, what potential problems might be creating by putting a set of milestones out there for parents to just use. we've got to be careful with them. And what are those kind of ways? Can you talk us through from your perspective what you see?
So from my perspective, it's so important to remember that every child is different. So one child might walk at 12 months, another child's going to walk at 15 months. So I think I think that's the key word, is that it is a guideline. So it's not a be all and end all. So if you get to 12 months and your child's not walking, that's not necessarily a red flag. The red flag comes in when it's a few months later and nothing's really happening. So you can't even see the process. And that's why knowing what comes first can also help. So it kind of gives you that guideline to know what should be kind of coming, what should I be seeing. So for example, with the crawling, if you're seeing the child on all fours and trying to kind of rock backwards and forwards, they're getting there. Just because they haven't quite crawled yet, we want them to crawl, which is a really important milestone. But so I think just not feeling that it has to be a checklist, like you said earlier, that you don't have to sit there and be like, oh, no, it's one day after they turned 15 months and they haven't done this. So that would be my main thing.
And for me, I found this line and it just resonates so much with me. I don't fix kids. They are not broken. And that's from my professional perspective. I'm going, parents, I can't fix your child. First of all, they're not broken. And second of all, there might be some needs we need to support so that they can, as you've been saying, reach their full potential. I mean, that's really our heart. We want to see children thrive. We want to see them do their best. We don't want to fail them on on like a checklist. This is not a pass-fail scenario.
Exactly.
And it's very easy, I think, to take a set of developmental milestones like this and use it with the framework of a deficit model. So we're looking at what don't they have, what can't they do, instead of what can they do? What skills are about to start emerging? They're on their hands and knees. They're rocking back and forth. Wow, they're about to crawl. This is great. We're getting there.
And then it gives you that chance to chat to someone to know how to promote that skill further. And I think that's where the professionals come in. So we're not saying that, your child's all wrong because they're not crawling yet. We're saying, they need a little bit of a push.
And this is how you maybe can support them.
Exactly.
Put this out in front of them, lift up their tummies in this way, or I don't know, I'm maybe speaking out of turn here.
You're doing good.
But I think, that's so, our children are more than just a checklist.
Exactly.
And then I know also, what also sparked this conversation with us earlier in the year was that the CDC in America had changed their whole approach to looking at developmental milestones in children. And in the professional world of therapists, it has created an absolute outcry.
100%. Everyone was like, what?
So between absolute shock and horror and just laughing because we just couldn't believe what was happening. But I think that also started this, sparked this off. And so my brief understanding, and I think you can also weigh in on it, is that they changed what was expected of children at certain ages. Now we're going, but surely if they have got to be doing this at 1 year and this at 2 years, how is that movable? And that is exactly what we're saying. Developmental milestones are fluid. It's not like a day after their first birthday they should be doing such and such. But for me, what they had done was they had simplified what was expected of a 2-year-old in terms of communication, and then you go, oh, wow, there's so much pressure off. Wow, my child's actually way ahead. But they're also very vague. They kind of made them more vague. But then if you look at what they were requiring of a 5-year-old, they should be reading fluently, they should be able to sit and read books like this. And so from a communication perspective, it's like, well, they've dumbed down the skills for a 2-year-old, but now they've shot up what a 5-year-old. How are we going to bridge that gap? This is just ridiculous. And so, again, it points to the fact that milestones are fluid. And also, just by the way, for anyone listening, these updates were not based on any new research. They just made the changes.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing with our guidelines. We've kind of gone through so much research that how does it suddenly change in 1 year or 2 years whenever the CDC kind of made their announcement. But like the same as what you were saying, to take out, for example, one of the things they took out was crawling. Crawling is no longer a milestone. And for me as an OT, I'm like, oh, no, you can't do that. Because it's not necessarily about the crawling. And I think what they did is, I don't really know what they were thinking.
Yeah.
But there are so many children nowadays who do seem to skip crawling. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, but they end up walking. But the point is, again, it links to so many other skills that you're not necessarily seeing. So for me, crawling is a very basic thing to try integrate primitive reflexes. So those primitive reflexes are things you're not meant to have when you're in grade 1, and yet I'm seeing so many children with that primitive reflex. So it's not going to look the same as when you're a baby, but it is messing up the whole body system. So that's why the guidelines are important, because it's not just about the crawling, it's all those little things before. So you'll go see, so one of the reflexes is called ATNR, and you guys are welcome to message me about what it is. But you'll see in the guideline that I mention when ATNR should be reintegrated, and you'll see it should be around that time. And if it's not integrated, the crawling then helps with that. So and it's also, like you were saying, so vague. They say talking has moved from 12 months to 15 months, and I'm sure you as a speech therapist is like, well, what does talking constitute?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, we want to look more, I'm more concerned about functional language. Is your baby making eye contact? Are they able to express their wants and needs? Than looking at a specific word and talking. And what is talking? 1 word, 2 words, saying a whole sentence, standing up and doing a
monologue.
A monologue, that's also very vague. Talking, well, what does that actually mean? I don't know. I can't answer what they're trying to say talking is at 15 months, because is it 1 word? Are we integrating 2 words? And so I think that's why I love what we've put together, because we've based it on lots of different research and pulled it together, and we've been able to put together this really comprehensive document. So I'm really excited that we get to share this with people.
No, me too.
And I'm also excited that the people can get hold of us or any other therapist and say, well, I'm not sure about this. And this is, our heart as therapists is we want to help as many children reach their potential, thrive. We're very happy to chat, to do an assessment, to do a screening, to sit and have that consult, because this is really important. Early intervention is so key in so many different areas.
Exactly.
So I think let's end off by, I don't know, unless there's anything else that
I think I just wanted to say, there's some maybe terms in the guidelines that we've left there that might, when you read it, you're like, what is this? And we've kind of done that to allow you to chat to us. Because it would be really hard to put a whole explanation about, for example, like ATNR, which is a primitive reflex, in the guideline. So we want you guys to come and chat to us.
And I think actually that was done intentionally, that we left it, some of the things a little bit technical, because we feel like it is important, if there is a question mark in an area, that it can open up conversation. That was exactly the reason. But so we are going to be letting everybody know on social media, so to maybe follow us. I'm the Upbeat Mama on Instagram, and I can't remember your handle.
It's LH Occupational Therapy.
LH Occupational Therapy. And okay. So we are going to be sharing our milestones with anybody who would like them. And you can access that through checking out our social media platforms. So I'm it's been a long day, guys. The Upbeat Mama on Instagram. So we are going to be sharing these developmental milestones, and people can have a look at our social media. So we are going to be sharing this amazing resource, these developmental milestones, through our social media platforms in the next little while. So have a look at Instagram, follow along, and you'll be able to see when and how you can access this. On Instagram, I'm the Upbeat Mama. Lauren is LH Occupational Therapy. And we're going to let you know about when the doors are opening. What you need to do then is send us an email with your name and the age of your child, and we will send you the specific set of milestones for the age range that your child is in, and then we are more than happy to keep the conversation open with you. If you just want them for reference, this is a free giveaway. This is a free resource that we're really excited to share with you. So Lauren, it's been awesome having this chat.
Thank you for having me, Philippa.
It's awesome. And yeah, catch you again on Instagram.
Definitely.
We'll share maybe share some things about what all these things are and what they mean.
Exactly.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you.
And don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel for more content that helps families thrive.